Hi, my name is Loayza Mendez, and I chose the rabies virus. What are rabies? The infectious disease is a member of the Rhabdoviridae family under the genus of the Loayza virus. The structure of the rabies virus is a rod or bullet-shaped, single-stranded, unsegmented RNA virus. The people who are at risk are from developing countries, Asia, Africa, India, humans living close to wildlife, travelers, people who do outdoor activities, and unvaccinated individuals. Transmission. The virus is transmitted to humans by an infected animal. Some of the infected animals could be bats, raccoons, coyotes, and the most popular in those countries are stray dogs. In rare cases, the virus has been transmitted by infected tissues or organs like corneas, or through aerosol transmissions in laboratories. Transmission begins with an entry point, such as a bite or scratch from the animal. It's really important to understand that not every bite or scratch will develop into rabies. It all depends if the rabies virus in the saliva actually made it into the host's tissue. The time between the bite and the symptom is known as the incubation period, and during this time, usually the host will not have any symptoms. However, each case is very different, so maybe someone might have flu-like symptoms or muscle weaknesses. During this period of time, the virus is binding into the nerves, and it's actually climbing its way up 1 to 2 centimeters a day, trying to reach up to the brain. This is really critical for doctors to stop the infection from developing, because once it goes up there, there's no point of returning back. The doctors will administer rabies vaccination and hemoglobin. Once the virus reaches the brain, the host will develop more symptoms and have a 100% chance of death. The infected person may have 2 different reactions to the virus, encephalitic and paralytic. Encephalitic symptoms are agitation, anxiety, foaming at the mouth, violent spasms, seizures. The paralytic symptoms is also known as the dumb form of rabies, muscle weakness, depression, confusion, increased blood pressure, and stiffness of the neck. The host usually develops a fear of water, and this is also known as hydrophobia. The sight or the thought of water triggers a gag reflex in the throat, making it impossible for them to swallow. From the perspective of the virus, the symptoms can be seen as a defense of the virus in order to infect other people. Let's take aggression. Aggression is to cause the transmission, to cause the host to bite another person. The inability to swallow causes foaming at the mouth, and this is the main carrier of the virus. After the virus reaches the brain, in about 10 days, that person will eventually fall into coma, and the only thing the doctors can do at this point is to make the person feel comfortable. Rabies is a controversial topic, I found out, among the medical field because there's so many unanswered questions. No post-treatment, no test to diagnose because it's insufficient. Also, we don't actually even fully understand how it affects the brain and the body, and there's no funding. Many doctors believe that why should we put funding into something that's preventable with a vaccination? The history of treatment. Now, the virus has always been around for centuries. The Roman Greeks felt like if they were bitten by a bat, they could treat themselves by eating the brain of a cock, also goose grease mixed with honey, and flesh of the mad dog, with salt was a remedy. I think the funniest one that I actually found was plucking the feathers from a rooster's anus, applying the rooster's anus to the wound, and this would suck out the poison. Thank goodness for Louis Pasteur in 1885, he was the first person to come up with the rabies vaccination. Now, we do have vaccinations, pre-vaccinations, however, we have 3 of them, but get this, that 30,000 to 70,000 people get infected every year, and 2 out of 3 humans contract rabies from the United States. Why the large numbers? Well, this is why. In those countries, they only make a few dollars every week. The vaccinations cost actually more money in Asia and India and Africa than here in the United States. They cost about $40 to $50 over there. They can't afford it, and there's not a supply of it. Now, that being said about the 100% chance of death, there has been one recorded unvaccinated survivor, Gina Gissi. Gina Gissi woke up one morning feeling flu-like symptoms, and her parents didn't think anything of it until they watched their daughter's health deteriorate in 1 week. She had tingling sensation in the fingers. She couldn't get out of bed because of the stiffness of muscles. She couldn't comprehend, or her speech was slurred. And this is when they took her to the doctors, and even the doctors were very puzzled. They gave her some tests, and everything was negative until her mother had recalled that her daughter had saved a bat. And as she released the bat, she had gotten bit on the finger. This is when the doctors knew that it could be possibly rabies. They had transferred her to the Milwaukee Infectious Disease Control. This is where Dr. Rodney was introduced. He had ended up going 20 years back in archives and found that the autopsy reports were that the brain didn't have any abnormal signs of the disease. This led him to think and to organize a plan from the exotoxicity theory, which they believe is the brain isn't actually being damaged. What's happening is that the brain is being overstimulated. And it also suggests that the immune system would eventually turn on. However, when it does turn on, the patient was already dead. So the solution was, hey, let's buy Gina's immune system some time. Let's induce her into a coma for several days, control every function, every body function, and let's see if her immune system will kick in, and let's put some antibiotics to fight back the virus. In a week, she came back from consciousness, and she was negative for rabies. This would soon later be called the Milwaukee Protocol, and it has been used 30 times. However, the success rate has been 2. Now, handling infected remains. Rabies, including yellow fever, anthrax, and Ebola, are classified as high risk. When caring for the infected body in a laboratory setting or in a funeral home setting, every person should receive the pre-exposure or booster immunization. A body bag must be used. Touching and viewings are prohibited. Also, you are not allowed to embalm them to minimize the exposure, and airborne precaution is a must, as well as putting a mask over the deceased's face in order to keep secretions from leaking. That being said, this disease and virus is very deadly, and we don't come across it too often in the United States, but I feel like we should be aware that this is really affecting the rest of the world. Thank you.